Good evening. We'll go ahead and get started. Keep everything on time because your time is valuable. Thank you all for being here. My name is Brandy Tyree, and I have the honor of being the coordinator for the Missoula Underage Substance Abuse Prevention Work Group, which is part of the Missoula Forum for Children and Youth. It's a lot to say. So I just appreciate you being here, and we are going to have a great conversation. Basically, the agenda for the evening is I am going to go through some stats about our local community, just to have a starting point, and tell you some things that are going on in our community to help fight underage substance use. We will be focusing mostly on alcohol, although we know there's lots of substances to be used by our kids. And then we will just open it up for questions and comments. We have great community leaders, law enforcement to help us answer questions. You as parents and community members probably have answers that we could learn a lot from. So that's kind of the format. One small piece of housekeeping is if you are here for your OPI or your PIR renewal credits, please meet me when we're done, and we'll have a small discussion up front, and then I have your forms that I think will want as well. So we'll get started. Basically, I just want to thank everybody for being here. I'm a mom. I know there's a million things you could be doing tonight, so thank you for your time. This night wouldn't be possible without amazing coworkers at the forum, and Angie Johnson, for sure, is the best coworker I think I've ever had in my life. She's the amazing woman that set up the Hidden in Plain Sight bedroom. I hope you had a chance to see that. It's a mock teenage bedroom. It's unreal how real it looks. And it just gives you an idea of things that might be hiding in your teenager's room. And Steve Schmidt is unable to be here tonight, but he's also another amazing coworker. He had to travel to Bozeman for work. Secondly, I have two amazing interns from the Missoula College that have just been putting so much effort into helping their community. It's just unreal, and I'm appreciative of them. So Jean and Corinne, thank you very much. And then lastly, I just want to thank MUSAP, but I also would like to thank Sentinel. You are always so great to us, and we never have to find a facility. The school district just always has locations for us, and the staff, we're typically here at Sentinel. The staff at Sentinel is just amazing. They just want what's best for our community and pretty much say yes, and how can we be helpful? So we appreciate that. So the first item on our agenda is we're very lucky tonight to have Nathan here with us tonight. And he is a student here at Sentinel. What grade are you in?
Senior.
He's a senior, so we don't have him much longer. And he's an officer for DECA. And he's just going to tell you a little bit about a campaign they have going on that could help win a grant for Sentinel High School, and that could also keep our community a little bit safer. I'm going to stand right next to him because we only have one mic to share. So that's why I'm going to stay up here. Nathan?
Not afraid, I swear. Hi, my name is Nathan Anderson, and I'm the director and PR, the communications and PR director for Sentinel DECA. Sentinel DECA is basically Sentinel as in Sentinel High School, and the DECA is Distributive Education Clubs of America. And our goal is to help emerging entrepreneurships and business leaders, to prepare them for the future. Why I'm here tonight is I'm here to talk about texting and driving. It's 8 times more deadly than drinking and driving, surprisingly. Most of our teens do it. I've done it once or twice, I will not lie. But I've learned that it is 8 times more deadly, and that by itself scares me to death. Basically, what I'm here to do is we have teamed up with State Farm, and it's the national competition, CelebrateMyDrive.com, and why I'm here is I'm here to talk about what CelebrateMyDrive.com is. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to bring awareness to texting and driving within the community. To do this, we've teamed up with State Farm, and over the course of the week, it's Teen Driver Safety Week. And so State Farm is given the opportunity, there's 100 different grants being sent out, 90 which are $25,000, and 10 of them are $100,000, with 2 of those grants including a Kelly Clarkson concert. Woo! So how can you help Sentinel DECA achieve this goal? Well, one, you can go to CelebrateMyDrive.com. This is the website, so you go to up to make a commitment and enter in any student, teacher, community member, parent, anybody can do this, so please spread the word. They go to CelebrateMyDrive.com, type in their email address, type in their birthday, They click next, and then they give you a few teen driver safety questions depending on your age range. Press commit, and it gives us an extra pledge, which adds up over time. We are currently in the middle of the rankings, and we're trying to get as many pledges as we can. To help bring awareness to this issue, we put a link on our Twitter page, which is @SentinelDeca. We have a Facebook page @SentinelDeca, and then we also have it on the MCPS Sentinel homepage. So like I say, just click the link, go and make a commitment, and you can help us out.
Thank you, Nathan, very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
You can sign up any email once a day. So if you're like most of us and have 6 emails, that's 6 votes a day. And I think one of the things that I'm most excited about is the money is staying right here at Sentinel High School. And they can use it for education. They can do almost anything with it. Only 10% of it needs to go towards texting and driving. So it's a really great opportunity. And how simple to help our kids just by going online. We have little cards when you leave that have the information on it, so you can take that with you. Okay. So just real quick, I think it's always nice to know the organization that's speaking. And so the Missoula Forum for Children and Youth has been around for about 17 years. And the way the story typically goes is about 17 years ago, a bunch of community leaders and experts and just concerned parents got together and said, hey, we have an underage drinking problem. And they said, what can we do about that? They had the infinite wisdom to understand they didn't necessarily need to create something else. They didn't need to duplicate services. So they had this idea of how could we form something that their entire goal was to help other agencies and to help support the community in what they're already doing. And so that's how the forum came about. One way to do that is we divide it into groups. And we have a best beginning group that focuses on 0 to 8. So childcare and early Head Start, readiness for school, that sort of thing. And then we have Youth Development Network, which is designed to bring all the organizations together that work with youth and to network and decide how they can implement their programs better and how can they make what they do for youth stronger. We do like to try to help have youth be a part of that process, and that's something that we are implementing. We used to have a youth council, and so hopefully down the road sometime we can bring that back in. And then, as I said, I'm the coordinator of MUSAP. I've been told forever we need a new name. None of us have figured out what that would be. It makes sense. And I assume MUSAP was the first work group since we wanted to focus on the underage drinking problem. And again, what MUSAP is designed to do is, I always say that my job is the best job in the world because it's to help the community in any way that they ask. And so it's presentations, it's events like this where I get to focus on whatever the community wants, where, as you know, all of our nonprofits and our business organizations, they're extremely busy. So we can do something together as a group of 30 or 40 of us, much simpler than you can when your plate's already really full. As you can see, there are a lot of partners with MUSAP. I couldn't and wouldn't want to do this work without them. And so I never make them do this, but we're going to tonight. If you're a partner of MUSAP and you know who you are, will you please stand, because you're amazing to our community and you need to be recognized. Thank you very, very much. Okay. So, of course, you're welcome to ask questions anytime that I'm going through this information. But like I said, when I'm done giving the basics of information, then it will just be an opportunity for us to chat. I'd really like you to, from here on out, just think about being in your living room, around your own coffee table, around your own dinner table. What do you want to know? What would you say? How would you talk to your kids? What have you been saying to your kids? Because that's why we're here. So 14 to 24, really glad to be way past that, is the 10 most dangerous years of your life. It's pretty scary. Every time I look at that, I think, wow. We know that life can be difficult before and after that, but that's why we're here tonight, because they have a lot of struggles facing them right now. This is what we know about our Missoula kids. In 2012, in the schools, the 8th, 10th, and 12th graders were surveyed. And what we found out is 34% of them get their alcohol from family members. So much like how our kids are abusing prescription drugs, they're typically getting that from their parents' or family's medicine cabinets. It's the same with alcohol. We know that 25% of our teens report binge drinking. So does anybody know what binge drinking is? Who wants to say it? Okay. So binge drinking is for a woman about 4 or more drinks in a row, and for a man, 5 or more drinks in a row. But let's think about teenagers, or a 14-year-old, or a 13-year-old. That's a lot of alcohol. We know pretty consistently that teenagers don't casually drink. So I might say that I don't, but I could say I model responsible drinking because I might have a glass of wine. We know that for an adult, that could be responsible, but it's not likely that kids are just going to sit around on a Saturday night and have a glass of wine. And binge drinking, as you can imagine, with that much alcohol in your system, leads to much more dangerous decisions. It leads to alcohol poisoning, which can lead to death. So that's one of the reasons that we look at the binge drinking number. The next stat, which I'm sure everybody's already read by now, is that 90% of the alcohol consumed by youth under the age of 21 is in the form of binge drinking. So again, it goes back to, let's not kid ourselves. Kids are not just hanging around and having a beer a week or a beer a night. And if they're getting that from you or from me, that's a lot of alcohol. Then lastly, I just wanted to throw in that 11% of our teens report misusing a narcotic prescription without a doctor's permission. The reason I throw that into tonight's topic is 2 reasons. I think that's scary. We're talking about narcotic painkillers. And they're taking them from family members, from your purse, from your medicine cabinet. And what most law enforcement, and there's lots in the room, so tell me if I'm wrong, what most law enforcement tells us is that once you start drinking, that's when other poor decisions come into play. And I think most of us can probably look back in our life and find similar examples. So when kids are drinking, then they decide to take prescription drugs. Oftentimes they're taking prescription drugs that they don't know what they are. It compounds the problem. And so I just want you to keep that in mind as we're talking tonight. And in our parent resource guide and on the table outside, you'll be given a card that talks a little bit about how to keep your prescription drugs safe at home. Okay, more fun graphs. I promise I only have a couple of them. But I think, numbers speak. And I've been doing this work for a long time, and everybody always says, well, that's not my kid. I now have the perfect preteen, I'm sure, and I'd like to think that's not my kid, but these numbers say absolutely. It could be my kid, could be his friend, could be the neighbor's kid, certainly could be my nieces or nephews. And that's why we asked you all to join tonight in the conversation, because nobody is left out. It could be your family that's affected by a drunk driver. So, again, we look at the age that they start drinking, so 14. So that's a freshman, right? I think at 13, that's 11% of our kids. That's an 8th grader. One of the reasons we care about the age that they start, not just because we care about them, but we care because the sooner you start drinking, even in small quantities, the more likely you are to be dependent the rest of your life. So one of our goals is not only to reduce the number of kids that use alcohol, it's to delay the use of alcohol. Okay, so drinking and driving. No kid would ever do that, right? No adult would ever do that, right? Well, what we know is, again, for me, having kids in this community, those numbers are pretty large for me. Because if it's not my kid drinking and driving, better not be, it could be my car that gets smashed or my kid that gets hit on the bike. And what it definitely says is they are riding more frequently with somebody that's been drinking and driving. I know that law enforcement also tells me that many times, I think sometimes I've heard at least half, that when they pull over a drunk driver, there's a sober driver in the car. Does that sound about right? Okay. So it's scary to me to think, it's nice to know that kids aren't drinking at a horribly high rate, but it's scary to me to think that they're still willing to get in the car. And as parents, I think we need to think about that. Are they scared to call us Do they know to call us? I think we talk a lot about not drinking and driving. We talk about not texting and driving. But how you are as a passenger, those decisions can affect you as well. Okay, so how wrong do parents feel it would be for you to drink? The great news is, and it shows by you all attending tonight, is that parents don't want kids drinking. Okay? What's even better, and I think most of us can relate to this, again, having kids, you start to think that you don't matter, that your opinion doesn't matter, they're not listening to you, there's no way you could influence them, their friends are way more important than you. And just year after year after year, the data tells us that's not true. You're still the #1 influence in your kid's life. So for me as a parent, that's scary, because they are watching whatever I'm doing. They are noticing if I'm texting and driving. They are noticing how I use alcohol. But I say this because to me it's also the most hopeful, is that tonight every one of us can do something that we already do well in our home, or we can do something different, because nothing matters more than our influence on our kids. Did everybody know you were still important to your kids? A lot of people worry and in doubt about that. Okay. So a couple years back, after doing this work for a long time, I don't think many people don't know that drinking under the age of 21 is illegal, right? So we're really just trying to get not necessarily new information out, but look at things from a different way. So rather, let's just say that the law doesn't matter too much. It does. But let's just say that's not really a factor in making decisions. And I know lots of people say drinking's a rite of passage. Okay, I'm not here to argue about that. That's a personal choice in your own family. But the brain data no longer lies. When we were younger, some of us in the room, we were taught that some of the things you did as a kid, that your brain would outgrow it and would regrow and all that kind of good stuff. We know that's no longer true. So to me, it really doesn't need much explanation. It just shows a very healthy, active brain, and just by adding a little bit of alcohol. And this is just one time of drinking that your brain changes immediately. The effects on the brain can be permanent, and so clearly affecting you the rest of your life. This one I was showing Angie today just blows my mind. So on the left is a 15-year-old male non-drinker, and on the right is a heavy drinker. So again, for me, it's starting to be, it's not really about preference. It's just the data of what's going on inside that noggin. We ask them to wear seatbelts, and we ask them to wear helmets. And so rite of passage or not, it's still affecting the brain, again, permanently. Okay, so I don't know. Whenever I say this to the high school students, they seem to listen all of a sudden. But I don't know about the rest of the men in the room, but this, I think catches some attention. So again, maybe getting an MIP isn't that big a deal to you. Maybe your brain's not that important. But I'm not sure how many men in the room want to turn into girls because of their drinking. I don't know. The last angle, and I'm so appreciative, I have to give a plug real quick. The Sentinel, again, all of our high schools are amazing. The Sentinel football coach decided to model, it sounds funny, I guess, because the NFL does make mistakes, but he decided to model the NFL program. And if any of you know much about the NFL, of course there's players that make the news and make horrible decisions. They're no different than the average population. But the NFL does a huge education series nonstop on different topics. And so the Sentinel football coach all summer, and Carrie or Dr. Apostle, anybody jump in if I get it wrong, all summer had the kids come in. Of course, they did their practices and their workouts, but then they had an education series, and they talked about sexual assault, and they talked about peer pressure, and they talked about alcohol. And basically what it boiled down to is I said to the guys, do you want to win? They all said yes. And I said, okay. You're probably good on your own, but this is what happens when you train week after week, but then on the weekends, you drink or you binge drink. So one time being drunk loses 14 days of training. And I don't know a lot about high school athletics anymore, but that's significant. That can be a game changer. And the guys, they started listening. I think there's lots of other reasons they listened. But after that series of presentations that their coach was so wise to have, the seniors decided that they were going to call a team meeting. No coaches allowed. One thing that was talked about in our presentation when we were telling the kids about losing training was I basically said to the coaches, how's that feel? You know, I know you don't get paid a ton. Most of you are volunteers. You work hard every night with these kids. Then on Friday and Saturday, they basically blow half of what they worked on. The coaches said, it makes me pretty mad. So at this senior meeting that they called, everybody gave out their phone numbers. The seniors made sure that everybody had their phone numbers. And the gentlemen made a commitment to help each other this season. Stay away from peer pressure, stay away from parties, stay away from drinking. And I think that's pretty neat. I'm sure it hasn't been perfect. They're teenagers, their frontal lobe's not fully developed, but it's a neat step. And I say that because I think sometimes people say, well, what's everyone doing? But in a community like this, every day somebody's doing something large for the population that they're dealing with. And I don't know, Carrie, I hate to put you on the spot, but if I'm correct, Sentinels won more games, or almost more games this year than they have in a while. Anybody confirm or deny that? Dr. Apostle? Yes. So they're great kids. I'm not saying that was completely it, but it just shows the impact of education. And giving them education on something that really hones in for them. That was a group of athletes. Story's almost over. They were knocking on my door selling the Sentinel cards, very nice young men. I opened my door and they're like, you're the alcohol lady. I said, I don't have any alcohol. And they said, you promised to come to one of our games if we start winning. And they were so excited to tell me that parents have signed up to make a commitment to host non-alcohol events after each game. They were so excited to tell me what the seniors are doing. And again, I just share the story because that's what this is all about. That's amazing. And just because, again, good kids, great kids, but one coach, and I'm sure he had the ideas from other people, but one coach decided to do sports a little differently. Okay. I get excited about that kind of stuff. Okay, so real quick, before we start talking, because I think the question always is, right, what are people doing? We talk about this, but what's being done about it? So prevention and asking people to stop a behavior, so to even just think about your kids, you know, or stop texting or turn off your phone. So to ask people to stop a behavior takes a lot of work. And it's a nice little jog. This is not a sprint. And it takes a toolbox of lots of variety because we all change behavior for different reasons, right? So tonight I'm just going to tell you a little bit about some of our laws and ordinances in Missoula that have made a difference, the community education that hopefully has made a difference, and some of the programs in Missoula that are aimed at making a difference at this. So the laws. They're typically in place to help keep us safe. They're in place because we care about each other, and we want a healthy community to live in. A couple years ago, people worked really hard to help pass a social host ordinance. So in the city of Missoula, you can be fined, and please chime in if I get this wrong, you can be fined, and also it's a misdemeanor, if you are deemed to knowingly allow a party to be held on your property. You don't have to provide the alcohol, but if you know that senior kegs at your house and you conveniently go on a date night that night, and that can all trace back to that you know about it, you can be held responsible for that. We need to have adults stop providing places and providing alcohol. And so that has been shown around the country. They've been in place in some cities for about 25 years, social host ordinances. It's been found to be effective. It's something that was a change for our community. And again, it has to be knowingly. So don't be scared to go out of town with a teenager. But if little Johnny, your senior, has a party every time you leave to go to an out-of-town Grizz game, and you know that, and one time somebody dies or gets in a car accident or the police need to come, then there's a chance that that could lead to consequences for you as well, let alone like being sued and insurance and all those liabilities, right? So our law enforcement, I personally love them. I think they're great. They're very supportive of our work. They're very concerned about underage drinking and driving. They do compliance checks. So they go around to our local establishments that sell alcohol and make sure that they're not selling to minors and that they're not over-serving. They do party patrols. So they have people that can specifically be on the lookout for those parties that can be dangerous. And then also for the state of Montana, this was very exciting to some of us in the room. The state finally decided last year, Lonnie? Last year? To have mandated server training. 2011. The years are blending. 2011. And what's great about that is that our state said, hey, we're serving a drug, and it's legal, but we're going to mandate that you have training on how to appropriately serve that so you can keep your patrons safe and we can keep our community safe. And then just we're continually trying to have stricter DUI laws. Okay, so community education. Stuff like this. We had a 3-part series last year, which was great because so many people participated in it. That series came about because we had a town hall meeting about 1.5 years ago here in this room, and people said, I want more information, and these are the topics we wanted on. And so MUSAP got together and said, how can we do that? And we came up with a community conversation. We do a lot of school presentations. Again, the thing I love most about my job is that when Carrie calls and says, hey, you know, I'm thinking about doing this at Sentinel, I can say, okay, we can make any presentation you want. We can come to any organization, your business, your school board, your class, your youth group, we talk about decision making, peer pressure, how the media influences our decisions when it comes to substances. And then of course, just like I said, I was asked to put a presentation together just specifically for athletes. And so we found the research on that. We have school resource officers in our high schools, and then we have 2 officers that are for our middle schools, community resource officers. It's a great idea. Originally the idea was just really to have people be more comfortable with officers and for kids to understand they are there to help. Also they're there for school safety and they're there for education. They do a great job. And then most of our schools are definitely MCPS, and then the other schools, some of them as well, have family resource centers. So you can go into your school, and that's different than the school counselor, although they're awesome. But it's another avenue for you to get help, ask about resources, and whatnot. I'll get to Project Success a little bit later. Okay, so programs. So that's nice. Education's great. But what are we doing beyond that? So one thing that's pretty exciting is organizations, and they've been around for a while, trying to help kids. We know that after school time can be a dangerous time for kids when they're alone to make unhealthy choices or unhealthy decisions. And that's one of the reasons that programs like Flagship, Boys and Girls Club are around, Campfire. They not only, of course, help with homework, but they provide a safe place for kids to be. City Life saw that teenagers want things to do. And so they started a program last year, 2 years ago? I can't get any of my dates right. A couple years ago. And they open up City Life on Friday nights and just provide a healthy atmosphere, obviously substance-free. And they do dodgeball tournaments, and they do paintball, and they have music, and just a welcoming place for kids to be. A couple weeks ago, the Frenchtown Community Coalition had homecoming coming up. We know that homecoming can be a time that kids might choose to use alcohol. And so their director, Gypsy Ray, decided, hey, why don't we have a theater outside? I don't know if she knew how cold it was going to be. But they had a movie. They got the projector and had a movie on the side of their school. And 75 kids or so came out to watch that movie and make healthy choices, which is pretty exciting. And then Project Success is a program of licensed addiction counselors who are in our high school. And they're there to help families and students. And it's a great idea because kids don't have to leave school to get help. There's lots of other people that are happy to help in a school, but they're trained when it comes to dealing with substances. So if you have concerns about your kid, or if you're worried about the warning signs, or a friend, then a Project Success counselor is there to help you out. Okay, I don't even know why this is in my hand. So, I obviously could go on all night about what's going on in this community. That is a short list. And so if you feel left out, feel free during discussion to say what's going on in your organization. We could be here for hours. This community is amazing. It is unreal how much people are putting efforts in to try to keep us safe. Of course, we still have 38% of our kids choosing to use alcohol. But that number used to be much, much higher decades ago. So what I'd like to do, we only have one mic, I'm sorry, but just open it up to discussion. So questions, comments, concerns, really anything. We have lots of great experts that can answer your question. Again, you might, as community members, have better answers than we had ever thought of. But that's what the design is. So if you have questions also about what I presented, feel free. So who's going to be the brave soul to start? You okay, Jay?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, everybody has something on their mind.
Brandy?
Yes.
Second grader. And so how will the community come in and help the second graders understand responsible alcohol, responsible don't drive and text?
That's a great question. I too have a second grader. What we've found with the little ones and the schools around this community are just amazing. So what we're trying to do with little kids is teach them responsible choices and decision making at their own level. And it is never, you bring up a great point, I can't say this enough, it is never too early to start talking to your kids about this. I appreciate it, but I'm still in awe when high school parents say to me, you know, now that he's a senior, I think I'm going to talk to him about drinking and sex. I can promise you, he heard about it a lot longer before that. I always say that we teach our kids please and thank you, or mommy and daddy, from the time they are babies. And there's appropriate ways at every age level to talk about this constantly. Most of us do not hear something once and remember it. And kids are no different. It might be uncomfortable. You might not know what to say. You might have struggled with these issues yourself. But I can promise you their friends, and especially all of their access to media, are talking about it. So with little kids, you talk about decision making and choices. You know, even about right now, maybe wearing a winter coat. Most little kids still want to wear sandals and shorts to school. So what's a healthy choice? What's going to keep you safe? When you talk about not crossing the street when a car's coming. Those are the same type of safe decisions you want them to think about when it comes to substances. I see at least one middle school principal in here, and her school is amazing. She's one of the best principals I've ever met. But this is affecting our 6th and 7th and 8th graders, right? They're not immune. So talk early, talk often. I highly recommend our parent resource guide gives some tips on how to talk to little ones. But also, your kids are using the internet, folks, so you use it. I mean, there pretty much isn't anything you can't find nowadays if you're concerned. Also, the school counselors are great if you want to know how to talk about this with your kids. Awesome question. Does anybody like to add to that at any time? Yeah, Lorraine. Oh, yeah, early.
Okay, so I'm working at the parenting place right now, and we teach parenting classes, and we have an excellent one coming up in November called Alcohol, Anger, and Abuse, because the person that your children is actually looking at is you. And so you need to be the role model for them. So if you're drinking, that does lead to anger problems, and it does frequently lead to abuse. So call the parenting place, talk to me about it. It's a great class. If you're working with other people that you think might benefit from them, have them call me.
Thank you, Lorraine. That's awesome. Anybody else want to add about talking to little kids? Here, whatever. Perfect. Do you know, is it covered specifically topics like alcohol or just danger and like poison?
Well, it depends on what grade level I'm in. I think under the elementary kids, it's like a healthy choice, danger type of thing. But as they progress, then it's into the drug and alcohol. So it's here is, well, in MCPS, it's their freshman year is when we really hit hammer on drug and alcohol stuff for really the last time. But they're getting it from 4th, 5th, 6th grade on. So it is in the health curriculum.
Awesome. I feel like I'm plugging people, but it's just true. She's one of the best health teachers. She always allows us to come in and talk to her kids, and It's just amazing. What I find last year, we surveyed every one of our kids anonymously, and what we found hands down is kids have questions. And I know every one of us in this room is doing the best we can, but they're not sure who to ask. And they have questions, concrete questions. In the Parent Resource Guide, again, feel like I'm plugging that, but in the Parent Resource Guide, there's a 2-page spread of questions that our Missoula kids are asking. Also, if you think about alcohol, again, not opposed to it, don't want it to not be in our society per se, but they see it from a very young age. Same with your prescription drugs. Prescription drugs have a great place in our society, but they see you using them, and if you're not talking to them about why you're using it, what it's for, or how it affects you, then they have questions. And they will go to their friends. I see you nodding. They will go to their friends. And I don't know about you, but I don't want a 12-year-old necessarily answering my son's questions because I don't know where he got the information from. What else? Do you mind standing up?
I have a question, and it has to do with, I wasn't exactly sure what the answer to give my grandchildren on a warm summer Friday evening, walking down Main Street in Missoula from one end to the other. The flagrant use of marijuana on the street, on both sides of the street, going and coming. My grandchildren were admiring. They seemed to know that there was something in this, and I was mystified. I didn't know what to say or explain to them about why that wasn't being addressed. So I would like to have information on that.
So who do I call on, gentlemen? Who wants a shot? Chief? Sheriff?
Sure.
Chief Muir?
We're in an interesting period of time in our civilization these days with respect to marijuana. That's one of the difficulties. Although we have made some major changes to the medical marijuana laws that now are much more restrictive with respect to public use, depending upon, so in downtown Missoula, for example, on a Friday night, it would not be legally permissible to smoke marijuana just out in public, whether under the guise of medical marijuana or legitimately as medical marijuana. Public use of that is not presently allowed in Montana laws. Those laws are continuing to be challenged significantly across the country, but specifically we've seen changes to that in Washington and Colorado, where they have now legalized the possession of small amounts of marijuana, even for recreational businesses. So the societal opinions are definitely in flux right now with respect to where to go. The state of Wyoming, which is the capital of Wyoming, is just 125 miles from Denver, where a big part of the focus of marijuana in Colorado is. They're very, very worried about this issue of normalizing the use of marijuana. And I'm not here tonight to speak against the issue of the validity of medical marijuana, but I'll tell you that what we encountered here in Missoula with the growth of medical marijuana dispensaries and all the different things, I'll tell you, I'm sure the sheriff will tell you the same thing. We saw a huge amount of use of marijuana, an increase in the use of marijuana under the guise of it being medicine. And that clearly wasn't the case. And we're glad to have seen that take a step back. But unfortunately, the horse kind of got out of the barn a little bit in respect to that. And so we haven't seen that curtail yet either. I'll tell you, interestingly, I get the report from the university public safety office five mornings a week, and I looked at what occurred on campus that involved police activity, and I can tell you that not a single day has gone by since the beginning of this semester that there has not been some degree of interaction between a university police officer and someone smoking marijuana on campus. A campus that is supposed to be smoke-free. So we're in a community where it's a tough thing. I don't know how to tell you how to explain, other than to say this is something that some people do use as medicine, but on the other hand, it's also about people abusing and breaking the law.
Thank you, Chief Mayor. Libby, does that help a little bit? I think although that is happening and it can be sad or frustrating or exciting depending on where you are in the spectrum, it's a great start for a conversation. And healthy choices and what other people do. Do you have to do what people engage in? You bring up marijuana, but there isn't many places you don't go in this town where people aren't drinking. That's different because it's a very legal activity if you're over the age of 21. But kids see that. So kids see that when you fish, you drink. When you go to Grizz games, you drink. I'm being general, but those are also great conversation starters of what that looks like for your family and why. What else are people thinking? Those are great questions. Oh, start speaking or I just pluck you out of the crowd. Yes?
You mentioned that most teens get their alcohol from family members.
Yes.
Is that with family members only? Or is that like they're going to a friend's house and then they're raiding their dad's liquor cabinet at home? So they want their parents back fighting the
That's a great question. I believe, and I know it's in the parent resource guide, I believe the 34% is with or without a parent's permission. So that's a great question. In the olden days with boxed wine, it was really easy to steal your parents' alcohol and then put water in it, you know. So yeah, I believe that's with or without your parents' permission, but I will make sure I confirm that for you. What else are people wondering? Hi, Glenn. You're here because you have questions or thoughts or concerns. Yes?
With the gal's concern up here before, there was a time that I remember growing up that if someone in the community was doing something that another person in the community, like smoking pot, marijuana, whatever you want to call it, on the street, and someone was walking with their kids, they would hopefully politely say, excuse me, my grandchildren with me, my daughter's with me, my wife, whatever the case may be, and would you mind not doing that in front of them? Or, and I think it's been more and more socially accepted to just not say anything instead of speak out. Do you have any advice for some of us that are frustrated and would like to speak out?
I'm looking for Linda. Or Brent. I know Linda doesn't love, but Linda or Brent. So Linda Green and Brent Hildebrand are from the University of Montana with Curry Health, and they have excellent ideas on how to, you have a great word. What do you call it when you approach somebody? I don't know. Okay, anyway, go ahead, Linda.
We do focus a lot on training our students about bystander intervention and empowering people to feel comfortable stepping up and saying something when you see something that probably shouldn't be happening, whether it's around alcohol, whether it's around, people abusing alcohol, sexual assault, using tobacco on campus, drinking and driving, that, it's our approach is that it's up to all of us to take a part in that. We cannot depend on our police officers or our law enforcement to do everything. They can't be everywhere. Each of us needs to step up and take some responsibility for creating the environment that we want to live in. And so we do work a lot with empowering people to feel comfortable to say, please don't do that, or I'm worried about you, or, you've been drinking, you probably shouldn't be driving, that we need to step up and say something. And so we actually work with our students to kind of give them that skills, and it's very difficult, when you haven't ever done it before, but as you do it more and more, and as you get more comfortable, and remember that we're doing this to create a safer community and protecting each other.
Thank you, Linda. Linda also says something that I think is awesome. I see Kayla Warren in the back. She works on tobacco prevention. So she has been integral in having the university be tobacco-free, right? Is that the word? Okay. But, so we talk about this all the time because I teach at the college, and there are signs all over that it's tobacco-free, but there's this wonderful garbage can. And I'm not sure if I get rid of the garbage can, if that would change the smoking. And it's not about smokers, it's just about the campus is smoke-free. And so I asked Linda, you know, what do I do? Because somebody in the room can know that I didn't handle it well. I just told them to walk 50 more feet, and that's not very nice. But Linda says it so well. She says that I care about you. And that's what this is about. That's why we have laws and policies. And they may not, you maybe didn't have a say in all of them, and maybe you don't agree with all of them. But most of them come down to public health and safety. So that's a great way to try to approach people. Does anybody else have any thoughts on what to say to someone or how to handle that? Yes, Chris.
I know sometimes that it can be really hard. I really encourage my own kids and my students to speak up, but sometimes you will say something, like I can give you an example of the ski area. We're riding the chair, my son's upset because there's marijuana drifting, and he's angry, and Mom, when we get off this chair, you're going to talk to that person, and you're going to tell them it's against the law. And my first feeling is, no, I'm not, because they're going to tell me, listen, lady, it's none of your business, and they're going to use other words. But I encourage him, and I always say, you need to say something if it bothers you, and if this makes you feel uncomfortable, you never do this to somebody else, kind of thing. And I have had said things, and I have had heard negative things back to me, but I still use it as a lesson and say, you know, when people are using, they will say things and will do things that they normally wouldn't if they weren't, and I just try to make it a lesson. But it's hard when someone's screaming in your face and you're with your kids and telling you it's none of your business and you're off duty, lady.
You can't suspend them on the chairlift? Yeah. No, it's very hard. You know, I think also it's about what's normal for you. And our open container law, I'll get this date wrong too, but it's like only 5 years old in a car, open container.
For the state?
Yeah. Okay, so a lot of us in this room are used to that it was legal to have open container of alcohol while you were driving. And I have a very good friend the other day that we were working on a project, didn't go so well, needed to run to Lowe's. You all know how that goes. It's going to be like a 10-hour trip. And I didn't realize that he hopped in the car with a beer. He knows totally what I do for a living. He knows how I feel about it. He knows I care about him. He's practically my brother. And I do this for a living, and I didn't know what to say. And so I pulled over the car, and I was like, do you know what I would get fired? He's like, well, you're not drinking. It's illegal. I mean, I can't even imagine if Rob pulled me over and, hey, Brandy, what's up? It didn't register. I had to turn around. It was so uncomfortable. And it's somebody that I know, care about, knows what I do. And so all I'm getting at is, hey, if you're younger in the room, it's hard. It is not easy. And especially, like I said, that was just ingrained behavior. And how do you say that without then judging that person or getting in a fight? And they hadn't been drinking. But it's hard. It's very hard. So it's a great question. Did you have a question, Ms. Susan?
I didn't really have a question. A couple of things that when you spoke to my Rotary Club, that you talked about that I think really resonated with people. One is when parents come home and say, I've had a terrible day, I really need a drink. Just think about that and the message that that sends. You also talked about every teen parties in your own home where kids are going to be present, really thinking about that.
Yes.
You also talked about the idea of possibly maybe an alcohol-free prison, which I think is worth perhaps looking into something.
You're the only one that's ever heard, maybe Linda and Brent, but I'm glad you like that idea.
I would just encourage those of you who are involved in civic organizations, in your faith communities, in parent organizations, to have Brandy or somebody from USAP come speak. Because I think parents and adults really are hungry for this sort of information. So distribute those resource guides, educate yourself. There are lots of tips in that guide, but she really makes it come to life when she speaks to her organization.
Thank you. Ms. Haypatrick is the CEO of United Way, and the Parent Resource Guide would not be possible without them. It's always difficult because, and Gypsy deals with this as well, but the things that we need to say about this topic are hard to hear. And the reality is you can't address this topic in our kids if you're not willing to look at your own behavior. And again, it's legal for us, but I would challenge you to consider in your own life how many activities you do that alcohol is around. Again, I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but just think about that. If I love cookies, so if we eat cookies a lot, then my kids love cookies, and alcohol is really no different. So I appreciate that, and yes, we are happy to speak anytime, anywhere, any place. Dr. Apostle, did you have a thought?
Yes, thank you. Well, first of all, Brandy, I would like to congratulate you and thank you and your team for putting forth such a great effort in terms of educating people regarding drugs and alcohol. Second, the people in this room, they believe in what you have to say. It's unfortunate that we don't have more people here tonight to listen to you and to have this discussion. Drugs and alcohol are part of our culture, not just here in Missoula, but around the world. And in order to change culture, you really have to embed a different set of values. And the only way that that can happen is through a collaborative effort where everyone in the community understands their role and their responsibility, from the school to the parent to the student. Everyone has to come together and say, this is what we want our community to represent in terms of drugs and alcohol. All you have to do is turn on the TV on any given night and they're advertising alcohol. You go by Karis Park, there's activities that sponsor alcohol. It's all around us. Maybe the time has come to tell the truth and to understand that our kids are being impacted in a way that's detrimental to their development in all respects. And so, as a society, as a culture, as a community, we have to come together if we really mean what we're saying tonight. We need to convey that everyone in this community has a responsibility and a role to play. And people need to step up. It can't just be the parents. It can't just be the school. It can't just be Brandy. It can't be United Way. It has to be all of us. And we need to be clear, and we need to stand for something as it relates to this particular issue. It's difficult to conquer what you're talking about. It takes courage. It takes courage. Just like most great things, you have to have the courage to stand up for what's right. And in this case, it's our children. Thank you. Thank you for all you do.
Thank you. Thank you. Completely agree. You know, it's, again, can be unpopular to think about, but I would challenge all of you, the next activity you do. Could you not have alcohol? How uncomfortable would that be? I've had to have conversations with my family that I don't have alcohol in my home. I'm the boring one. It's probably true. But it's weird that, you know, as in adults, we still have that peer pressure. So again, younger people in the room, peer pressure is hard. We have it too, and we need to model it differently. Does anybody know how much the alcohol industry spends every year communicating to your youth in your community? Every year. Yes. 30 billion? Higher. 40 billion. Does anybody know how much the prescription drug industry spends speaking to your kids? 40 billion. That's 80 billion. Anybody want to guess what my budget is? Oh, come on, it'll be fun. Oh, I did have $1,000. Okay, I did have $1,000. So at $80 billion, if you're not talking to your kids every day, often, a lot, even when they say, I don't want to hear it, somebody is. Any other thoughts on how to make a change or what you're doing in your own home or community? Yes? Yeah, right. Yeah, yeah. It's not new to us to hear that. It's a great question. What I can tell you in Montana, the question is, so sort of what I do I go out to other communities outside Missoula County so that when people come to the University of Montana, they've heard this prevention message? Is that an okay paraphrase? Okay. So in Montana, I do think we're blessed. There's 54 counties, 52 counties? 56. I'm going to get something right tonight, okay? I am. Hang in there. 56 counties. Maybe had I not drank when I was a teenager, have it all up here. 56 counties. And of those counties, almost every one of them has a position like mine. And we do the best we can, conference calls, conferences, to try to coordinate that message. And then you have people like Linda and Brent who are on college campuses to try to coordinate that message. Yes, we are well aware that there's a lot of drinking that goes on the University of Montana campus. Not too terribly different from a lot of college campuses. I personally have noticed in the last 20 years behavior change, though, and what that looks like. The university did a great job trying to change Forrester's Ball, for example. So I do think the message is out there. I can't say exactly what it's like in each community, but just as Ms. Berta was pointing out, it's also in our health curriculum. There's national campaigns. So I think people can hear the message if they want to or if they seek it out. Any other thoughts, or anybody want to address anything else that was said in that? Yeah, Linda.
I think, Randy, also, as you showed with the statistics, things are getting better. You know, we have a long way to go, but if you look back 20 years, even 10 years, the numbers are coming down and they are improving every year. We're seeing that, you know, in our community and pretty much across the country, but I know we're definitely seeing it at the university as well. Yeah. So it's getting better.
One thing that we talk about a lot in our meetings and just individually working is that, again, it's sort of a generational thing. That I believe the average, I feel like I just shouldn't say anything more because I'm probably going to be wrong, but I think a lot of people in this community want to say the drunk driver is our college kid, and that's just not true. It's not the average person who we pull over for drunk driving. Okay, great, I'm on to something. And I believe at one point when we looked into it a little bit further, it was like a male 42 to 45 years old, or 20, a little bit lower, but it wasn't the college student, right? I'm looking at the task force. What?
About 29.
Okay, 29. I was blaming the old people. So if you think about it, generationally, what we're seeing and when we're talking to people is that the college generation and the younger generation is receiving that message about drinking and driving. That is a huge start. But as Nathan pointed out, again, generational-wise, they are texting and driving at a higher rate than we are drinking and driving. I also read a great research article that talked about that if a kid texts and drives, they're 50% more likely to drink and drive. So some might say, well, why would the alcohol lady talk about texting and driving? Because when you engage in a risky behavior, you're more likely to engage in other risky behaviors. So Linda's right, things are changing, but these are our kids, right? So we want it to be perfect. We want it to be 0 kids that are dying or being harmed or having things happen to them. But very, very great question. What other thoughts are on people's minds? Yes?
I'm going to play devil's advocate here. So what about the parents that say something along the lines of, you know, when I was a kid, drinking age was only 18 years old, and in my opinion, our kids should be allowed to have, you know, their own decisions, be able to make their own decisions. So, you know, who am I to say my son can or can't do that? And also there's a lot of peer pressure on some of the parents to be the popular parent. Yeah. So how do you go about tackling those issues?
Yeah.
One of the things that I can think of on that is trying to get the message across that it's not your job as the parent to be your kid's friend. It's your job to be the parent. Not advocating this, I was, as you can probably imagine, I've been a cop for almost 41 years. My kids aren't that old. They're 35 and 33, but they grew up under a dad who gets to see all the terrible things out on the road. So their message from the day they were born was, I'm not your friend. I have no goal to be your friend. I'm your parent. I'm going to teach you how to be a good part of society. And If, when you're 40, we're friends, that's okay, but it's not my goal. I also had the advantage that, you know, I worked the road for 38 years almost. When there was a bad wreck, or there was a bad party that turned real sour for people, I'd call home and say, hey, get the kids up, they're going for a ride. And I'd go show them the results. Consequently, I had 2 kids who never got in trouble, never got arrested, never got ticketed, never drank. Again, the part about where I say don't probably follow my goal or my lead was I did not realize how firmly under my thumb I had them until 2 weeks after my oldest boy got married. He called me to see if he and his wife could go do something they wanted to do. You know, building on what you said, very much of what we see as cops, it isn't nearly as important what you tell the child as what you show them. If you stop off from work to relieve stress with a couple drinks, they know it. Doesn't matter what you do. If you have a 12-pack sitting in your fridge all the time so that you have the alcohol to relax, you're teaching them far more than what you tell them. Correct me if, you know, they say statistics are always, what, 98% of statistics are made up a couple seconds before. Yeah, how about this one? I would be willing to bet you in my career, Mark, Rob, Jim, anybody here that can correct me, I would bet that 70% of what we do as cops has something to do with alcohol. Now in the daytime, there isn't nearly as much to do with alcohol as at night. At night, virtually every single thing we do has something to do with alcohol. 4 years ago, the young man that killed my wife, he didn't learn drunk driving as a 25-year-old. He learned it as a high school kid, as a teenager or younger. And what that culminated in was a wreck that killed my wife, and he had been drinking and smoking dope. He learned that somewhere. I advocate to parents. You know, when your kid says, well, Jimmy and Johnny get to do that. My response on that was always, I don't care. They aren't, Jimmy's parents aren't your parents. You will do what I say. It's really important to be the parent, not the friend. And it's really important to pattern what you want those kids to do, because they are going to do what they see you do.
Thank you. They're hard things to think about, because, you know, I'm a parent, like I've said 100 times, and you have to look at your own behavior, and it is hard not to be your kid's friend. It's really hard. Right now, I don't know how many of you have kids that are going through the wanting Facebook and Instagram and all of that. Well, I, of course, do this for a living, so I hang around these fun people who have horror stories to tell. So there's no way my kid's getting an Instagram or Facebook account. And Instagram, I don't know if you know, real quick plug, they own those pictures for life. Every picture that is on Instagram, they own them for life. So you can be a billboard somewhere in Asia, or they can take your picture and put it on a naked body somewhere. And so when you delete it off their phone, it's still Instagram's. And so my son can't have an Instagram account. And he came to me the other day, and he said, Mom, I had a secret Instagram account a little while back ago, and I didn't get stolen. So, I mean, right? It's hard. It's frustrating to have your kid be mad at you. It's not fun. But you're right. It's not the idea to be their friend, and I'm not being Debbie Downer, but when they die because of a poor choice, it's not even an option anymore. And we know that this is happening all the time. And also, parenting's not much different than what your parents did, right or wrong. So you can look back and what worked, didn't work. But it's a tough topic to think about alcohol and having it be a change in your life. Thank you, Sheriff. What else? Yes.
I love the statistic about how influential parents are. And I'm wondering if there's anything that USAP does, or if there's any kind of help for students and teens who are children of homes where someone is a substance abuser, whether they're in or out of treatment, or even if they're in treatment or they're working to get better. Even still, I believe that puts those youths at more risk. And is there a way that gets addressed? Is there some sort of like working with some of the centers like Western Montana Mental Health or any of those where those kids can get services without shame, be able to talk about it? Because I don't think that they may talk about some things with their friends. They probably don't talk about the fact that mom's an alcoholic or those kind of things. So how do we protect them? Because they are statistically at higher risk to develop that for themselves later on. So what kind of preventative things are in place for them?
That's a great question. Christy, do you want me to start, or could you go ahead? Really? I haven't gotten much right tonight. You go for it.
At Turning Point in the adolescent program, and we're trying to address that in many ways. First of all, we of course have outpatient treatment services for adolescent inpatient, and then we have the Project Success counselors in schools. And I would say that probably 50% of the kids I saw in Project Success came in to talk about their parents' use or siblings' use, and not their own. And probably 75 to 80% of the kids who are using that are in our treatment programs have parents that use. So we talk about family roles in an alcoholic home and how that impacts kids and how to get out of that. We also recently started a family group for parents who have questions or who are struggling with an adolescent that's drinking or using and just need some support. So any of you are welcome to come to that anytime. We do that on Monday nights from 5:30 to 7:30.
Where?
What's that?
Where do you do that?
At Turning Point in the adolescent building, which is 1321 Wyoming, downstairs. Also, the Project Success counselors go and speak to classes, like in health classes, and a lot of times that's one of the subjects we cover is being a child of an alcoholic or an addict. So, I mean, we're trying to get support out there for the kids, and you're right, a lot of times they don't want to talk about it because they don't want to get mom and dad in trouble. So we try to be a safe place for them to come and share, and we brainstorm with them on how to deal with those situations. So, for example, I worked with one kid one time who on holidays, his parents would get pretty intoxicated in the driveway home, and it scared him. So we tried to plan ways that he could get out of riding with his parents, like get a job, and you have to work on Thanksgiving, or when you get in the car, tell him you're going to throw up. You go over. Just different things that you can do to try to increase safety in those homes. But it really helps to have parents involved, and we can start talking to them about their own use patterns. Does that answer your question? Yeah.
Thank you, Christy. There's also an organization in town called Evolution. It's definitely more, I think it's often geared toward parents that have legal trouble, but that's a service that is designed for parents that are trying to lead substance-free lives and parent at the same time, or maybe try to get their kids back if they've had to be removed for a while. And Lorraine, the program you were talking about earlier isn't necessarily about people that are addicts or have problems, but it does involve alcohol and your anger issues. Is that what you mentioned earlier?
Well, it could be. It goes either way, but it's alcohol's effect on anger and also on abuse, and so it goes into domestic violence and abusing children, which is also domestic violence. So, it's pretty hard hitting. I'll warn people this curriculum is tough, but I did talk to a father walked into my today. He said, I just got out of prison for substance abuse issues. Now I'm living with my 15-year-old son. It's just the two of us, and what do I do because he's doing what I used to do? And this is what we see every day.
Absolutely. And I think you're right. Well, I know you're right. It is hard when you're in recovery, and what do kids do? There's also Al-Anon meetings in town. And you do bring up a great point that they're at greater risk. I never can have a mic without reminding everybody, this is everybody's kids. So if you've never drank a drop of alcohol in your life, that's awesome, probably first of all, but it still can be your kid because it's everywhere, right? Just like the first time, maybe I'm the only one that's a bad parent, but the first time your kid swears, and it's usually what, like when they're 5 or 6, and you can say, well, I never swear around them. Okay, that'd be great too, but they're still hearing it. They're still hearing it. My kids always like to remind me when I turn off the radio or a movie because of swearing, they always say, well, Papa sounds worse than that. So they're hearing, these behaviors can be every one of our kids. And I just say that because we can't become complacent. And we all probably do have great kids, but it could be tomorrow. It could be because what their friends are doing. A change can happen in their social lives. Transitioning from 8th grade to 9th grade is pretty hard. Getting ready to move out can be hard. Transitioning from 5th grade to 6th grade is pretty hard. So those periods are a great time to even talk more with your kids. Yes?
What you do is you're kind of the parental child. You become kind of one of your own. And you know there's something going on because they only want to home when there's something they need done. And you spend those 4 days with us. I mean, what do you do when you care about a child that much that's not your own and you know something's going on? And I'm watching his Facebook account, right? I mean,
You bring up a great point. First of all, we'll get your question answered. Be friends with your kids on Facebook, or in my opinion, don't let them have Facebook. But as Ms. Johnson showed you in the hidden plain sight bedroom, make sure you're friends with the right friend of your kids on Facebook, because they may have more than one Facebook account. It's pretty easy to do. There's lots of experts in the room that can answer a question way better than I can. What do you do when it's not your kid? And we really all should be caring about somebody that's not our kid. But how do you help somebody when it's not your kid? You can't change the parents. What can you offer? Okay, Christy.
You can talk to them if they're open to it and just give them a safe place to talk and to be in your home. And also, project success counselors in the high schools take referrals from anybody, and we can keep those anonymous. So you could call the project success counselor that works in that student's high school and give them that student's name and let them know what your concerns are, and then she can meet with them and try to either recommend treatment if that's needed or provide support or whatever he or she would need.
Any other thoughts? It's a tough situation. Tim?
I would just add, educate yourself and be available. I don't think you can force yourself on, especially today's youth. I think it's a social perception that what's socially accepted is kids can tell their parents, you know, up yours, whatever. I mean, I've seen it at the schools. And I think until we can all, you know, bring society together, that one house at a time, if we can change the social perceptions of what's socially acceptable, we're in the right place. But be educated, because if you have no idea when someone comes to you with a question what the answer is, they might not come to you again. But be educated and be honest, and you know.
If I were to ask you all, that's perfect advice. If I were to ask you all in the room right now to think about what really has helped you be who you are today, is there anybody that could say that a person wasn't involved in that? A teacher, a friend, a neighbor, the nice little grandma lady that always had rolls for you. So just being there and available is the biggest step. I admire that. It's huge.
I think the big thing you need to do is be available, number one, and then you need to educate yourself about resources. You know, Christy gave you an excellent opportunity to get the project success counselor. The project success counselor knows what resources and what referral system you can be. To get somebody else in that kid's life, if he needs to get somebody else in his life to help him with his home situation. But being there for the kid without heartburning, and letting him know that it's safe at your place, and then make those confidential referrals to people who know there are other resources within the community, and you'd be amazed at the people who rally around the kid. We have a great place.
yes. What if the parents?
Go ahead.
So what if the parent, so you're helping somebody else's kid, keep them safe, help them make healthy choices, they're spending time with you, and the parent finds out. Ms. Stevens, do you want to address that?
Well, I just think that if we're communicating to kids and giving them a safe place, and we're not being judgmental about the parents, but we're modeling what it could be like, because I think it's really hard for kids. They love their parents. Even if they're not good parents, they love their parents, and it's a great way to stick in a wedge between you and them. But if you lead by example and you care for them and you take care of them, but always keep in mind, no matter how bad they are, they love them. Remember that, because that's really the hard part for them.
That's great advice. 1 second, Judge, please. Did you have a comment in the back, Virginia?
I was just going to say that I think that at some point in your children's lives that their friends are the ones that really have almost or maybe more influence than you do on your children. And one great way to help your kids through some of the dangerous times are to make sure that they have good friends, and keeping your kids involved in sports in particular, or something that is constructive, that keeps them busy, I think is a good practical way. I mean, they don't even know that mom and dad are just saying, okay, yes, we'll participate in Little Grizzly, we'll go this, that. Keep your kids involved, and so that they don't have a whole lot of time to get into things that you really don't want them to be into, or get involved in kids that maybe won't be a good influence. If they're involved in a team sport or a team activity, that's a good way to keep your kids out of trouble.
Absolutely, absolutely. Judge Orthick? Bethany.
Well, as a child, I had a pretty rough upbringing. There was alcoholism on both sides of my family and violence too. And I learned from early on how to get away in the neighborhood. And it was really cool because a lady down the street, she never really got away from my parents' love or anything like that, but she always had a job for me. It was like I could paint her fence or scrape the paint off the side of the, scrape it before you paint. And, everything you do to paint a house. I must have painted that house 3 or 4 times when I was a kid. Okay, and she hired the other kids in the neighborhood, and that house got to be known as the safe house in the neighborhood. And there were a bunch of crazy kids there, myself included, who always went there because they had candy, they let us drink Turkish coffee, and they had little jobs for us. So I think that we can, as we see kids growing up in the neighborhood, say, hey, you want to come clean my house, a couple hours a week or something like that, and establish that relationship. It saved me. I mean, it literally saved me.
And it just takes one person. You could be that one person. Yeah.
You can be it. You really can.
Thank you. That's so true.
I'd just like to add to Christy and Project Success to remember that it is not your job as a parent or a parent of one of your kids' friends to determine if there is child abuse or neglect going on or something like that. But if you make a referral to Project Success or another social worker or producer, they are mandatory reporters for child abuse and neglect, so they will do that work for you. The investigation is not your responsibility. So you be the best you can be for that kid when they're in your home. Make the referral to the professionals who will then pass that along and determine if this is child abuse or neglect, make that report, and then formal interventions will happen. So that's one thing we always tell parents is, you don't have to be that one. You let the professionals make that decision for you. And I think that gives you a break to think you're supposed to save this kid. Well, there's a whole team of professionals here to save this kid. So just like Randy said, be the best you can be when he's in your care.
That's great. That's great. Great advice. Yeah.
One way I found out to connect with my girlfriend's teen is to take an interest in the kid's interests. If I only spend 10 minutes a day with him, at least that 10 minutes, I know who he's hanging out with. And I try to pay pretty close attention to the things I say and what I'm doing, because he does model my behaviors. Even though I'm not his real father, I've had other people say, Britt told me this, and it's, I know it came straight from you, and that was fantastic advice. And it's really heartwarming to know that when he's not at the house, he's out making good decisions, and I feel like I'm a big part of that. And it's just because, I'm like, hey, what are you listening to? Let me, what are those words saying? When I first started listening to his music, it was just crazy, and but I actually kind of like a little bit of it now. And it really did help us bond. I've gone to a couple concerts with him. I'm not his friend. He knows that what I say is going to happen. I'm extremely consistent. But I do take an interest in his interests, and now he's interested in some of my interests. So that's how I got a little bit of a bond with the kid.
Yeah, that's very great advice. Another plug that I would make is there's a phenomenal book. You might have to search for it now, but it's called Parenting with Dignity by Mac Bledsoe, who happens to be Drew Bledsoe's father. He's an amazing man, as is his wife. And he says two things that I will never forget. And basically he says that most, if not all, of the poor decision your kids will make, you won't be there. You're not going to be in the backseat of the car. You're not going to be in the woods at the kegger. You're not going to be in the basement with the door shut. You're not going to be in their bedroom with the door shut. So it is hard, and it's a lot of work to think about when you're not there, what decision will they make? When you're not there, how will they think? What will they remember what you've taught them? He also says that in a perfect world, that Gypsy and I would have relatively the same rules. Not necessarily the same morals, but relatively the same rules. So when Gypsy's daughter decides to date my son's not mad at me because he has to be home at midnight, and Gypsy's kid gets to be home at 4 in the morning. So it's difficult because I guess what I'm getting at is I think we make it hard on each other as parents because we do have different rules. And there's some that are really just the law. Seatbelts, car seats. There's a curfew in Missoula City. I don't know if people knew that. So if we support each other more, then we aren't always getting yelled at by our kids because everybody else gets to do it differently. You know, right now in my world, if everybody didn't have an Instagram account, it would be easier in my household. But I think it just makes perfect sense. So the decisions they're going to make that could be potentially harmful to them, you're very likely not going to be there, or you're engaging in the harmful behavior with them. So we can take one last comment or a thought, or yes. Oh, yes, go ahead.
I would just like to say, you know, there really is no bad kids. There may be bad situations and they've made bad choices, but they're not any less than a child that goes to ballet or to football or to anything else. They're all the same. They're still children.
Absolutely. Yep, it's just bad choices. And sadly, those bad choices can be with you the rest of your life. The one thing I did forget to mention is we talk about a minor in possession, an MIP. And I think we all forget that that can stay with you for life. So if your kid's goal is to be in the FBI or to other law enforcement, or it can affect you when you go to college. So it's hard. Again, I talk about the frontal lobe's not fully developed, and you're making decisions that can be with you forever. And all of us sitting in this room likely know what that's like, right? So real quick, I just want to close with a couple things so we don't forget anything. Oh, this worked. Oh. It worked, Jean, when we tried it, didn't it? Okay. So I had a snippet of a video. You can Google it. It's this resource, abovetheinfluence.com. It's the reason you're here tonight. They gave us a little bit of money to bring us together. It's a great resource. It's designed basically by kids, for kids. But I really encourage you, again, as adults, you want to know what they're reading. But it's very helpful. It has great information about all different types of substances. It has testimonies. The commercial that we were going to show you, my coworker showed me today, and it's a teenage girl throwing up in a bathroom. And as she's throwing up in the toilet, it pans down into the toilet and it shows her college education. It shows her friends. It shows what looks like maybe she was a cheerleader at some point. It shows all of the potential that is going down with that when she's had too much to drink that night. But this is a great resource. I would highly encourage you to check it out. And also, it'd be something great to show your teen or to look through with your teen or your preteen or somebody younger. Okay, so what can you do tonight? Because, right, we're not going to take our time and not do something. We want to know what we can do, and immediately, okay? So as you walk out of this room, a couple things are going to be handed to you. A parent resource guide. You can take those. They are free. This is one of the most prideful projects to me in this community. It's over 25 local resources and experts coming together. It's completely free of charge. There's not a single piece of advertising in it, not a single thing that you need to sign up for. They are available to you. All you got to do is call me, and I will deliver them to your organization, your PTO, your business, wherever you want them, okay? Secondly, so when you walk out, you'll get a parent resource card, and as you walk out, there's a table for evaluations. We'd love to know what you think. It matters deeply to us, so much that we are willing to have a drawing for a $50 gas card. So there's lots of evaluations, lots of pens. It shouldn't take you very long at all. You also have the opportunity tonight to go home, and between now and Saturday, as often as possible, to sign that pledge to have safe driving tips, which could help get a lot of money for our high school here. If you haven't had a chance, the Hidden in Plain Sight bedroom is still set up, so go through that. It is amazing. Somebody was saying the flip-flops with the can opener. It is so easy to hide something if you want. And face it, guys, we're old. There are some things that are similar, but there are some things that are different from when we were kids. There's a lipstick container that has a false compartment. I just find that fascinating. So check that out. And we also will be giving you a note card that has concrete tips of things that you can do tonight, like leaving your porch light on. Why do you leave your porch light on? Police officers, it creates a safer community, safer place to be. It says this community cares. So something so simple that you can do. Most importantly is, I think we've said this a lot, continue this conversation at the water cooler tomorrow. If you're in some nonprofits lately, the water cooler's been taken out. But at the water cooler, tell your siblings, talk to your kids about it. There really isn't anybody, this is information that's relevant to everybody. They're all our kids. So you'll be getting those things as you leave the room. This is the postcard. Simple things. Eating dinner together. It greatly can reduce, I think up to 33% chance, reduce your kids using substances. And sure, I could go into that it should be healthy and homemade and all that stuff, but come on, let's be real. Okay? It's a bowl of cereal sometimes. But just eating dinner together. Even eating dinner together at McDonald's, whether that's healthy or not for you, it's still together. It's a great time for conversation. So you'll get all those tips when you leave. I also want to say that I've had people recording, not who's saying, but what people are saying, because we go back to MUSEP and we talk about what people's concerns are and what they want more of. Again, that's how the series came about. This evening wasn't designed necessarily to launch a new coalition or to start a new program. It was hearing what people have to say and how can we enhance what's already in this community, because personally I think we are a great community and we have amazing kids in this community. So don't for once think that your time wasn't of value to us, because it means so much to us that you took time in your evening. And I know that you're going to continue the conversation. There's something, hopefully, that sparked your interest tonight to share with a friend, or did you know that, or I didn't know that was going on. We are available at MUSEP. I say we, I guess it is only me, the coordinator, but contact us anytime and we will get you to the right people. We will do the best we can to answer your question, support you. Like Ms. Susan pointed out, we are happy to give presentations to anybody for any reason at any time. And I guess you're lucky. I am done. Remember, if you want that credit, please come and hang out with me. I appreciate you, the community leaders and law enforcement that showed up tonight and took your time. Thank you so much. Please be safe. Wear your seatbelt. I'd love it if you didn't ever drink and drive again. And just have a wonderful evening. Thank you very much.
Yeah.